What's up, y'all? Thanks for joining us for this free Homestead webinar. I really wanted to start off tonight with a quote from Bill Mollison. You've heard me say it all the time if you've been watching our channel, but though the problems of the world are infinitely complex, the solutions are embarrassingly simple. And I think that sums up pretty much everything that we're doing here at the Sustainable Homestead Institute. My solution and our solution is very simple. Be as productive as we can wherever we stand and build abundance for ourselves, our families, and our communities. Um, Tonight we in another webinar we talked about activation energy, particularly with like survival skills, but and how it takes like a minimum amount of effort for like a chemical reaction to occur. Now, that's the same in like business, that's the same and definitely the same in homesteading, definitely the same in survival. But we have to like put intense focus effort into anything that we do in order for us to be productive and have that abundance that we talk about all the time. If we go back like 400 years or so, kings would look at us as gods, and even like the poorest among us as gods. We have fire at our fingertips. We have light, running water, sanitation, uh, and these things like are built because of the lessons that we learned are written on the tombstones of others. I know you've heard me say that too, but Isaac Newton, I think he said it best when he said that I can see far because I stand on the shoulders of giants. Now, everyone that came before us in our family line, everyone that came before us in society, our successes are built on the foundation that they have created for us. And so it's up to us to leave it better than we found it. That's one of our like hard and fast tenets is how do we leave it better than we found it? And we have a whole toolkit that we can implement for like doing permaculture design, homestead permaculture. How do we capture the most amount of resources from what God has blessed us with in nature? But our number one tool is awareness. We talk about the OODA loop all the time. It's observe, orient, decide, and act. Observation and our awareness is our strongest and most powerful tool. We have the ability to use our five senses to understand an environment and then come in and make small changes that lead to big effects as far as like harvesting and sustainability and regenerative agriculture. So I encourage all my students before they do anything, like whether, so you've just bought a piece of land, the first thing that you have to do is just sit and wait and observe. Get yourself a hammock. That's one of the permaculture principles is like you have to have a hammock. Get yourself a hammock, get yourself a journal, spend years observing the landscape and understanding things before you ever act. And that'll save you like time and headache and a whole lot of stuff. But uh what's the quote? If I had 4 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend the first three sharpening my axe. This is what we're doing with observation. We can take in what the universe is showing us and then think of how little changes can bring about huge rewards in our plan. Now, observe, observe, observe. We have journals and some questionnaires that help in that observation process. But if you're doing this for the first time, we have to slow that down so we're not rushing and jumping the gun. Before we don't want to put we don't want to build over a septic tank. We don't want to put a greenhouse in a shady spot. We want to be aware of our solar aspect. It'd be terrible to put up solar panels in like a shady spot. You know what I mean? We definitely don't want to do that with our garden. And we definitely don't want to be reliant on like fossil fuel energy to fill the gaps when nature and there's the systems of nature can do things for us that is like really amazing. So observation is our first tool. Our second tool is that we harvest everything and nothing is left um, for now that we're not exactly harvesting everything, but we're taking advantage of the blessings that nature gives us. And in when I say harvest everything, what I'm really mean is like I'm closing loops in the system. So we're slowing water down, we're sinking it into the landscape, and we're holding it in the soil. We're regenerating soils through cover crops and composting and changing soil structures with things like daikon radishes and like rotational grazing systems. We're stacking functions. Like, so if we think about the pasture system, right, we have grass that's like maybe this tall, right? And so we can get multiple feedings out of that. Traditional agriculture just might have cows in there, and then they require fossil fuels to plant the crops over here, to take the corn to the cow in the feedlot, and then uh, the cows poop, and now we need like fossil fuel power to rake out the pasture. Now weeds are growing in it, so we use fossil fuel power again to chop those, to brush hog the pasture systems when we can really use intelligent design and uh, intelligent grazing of animals to do the same thing. And this is stacking functions. How can we get multiple feedings out of the same lot? So we might plant a garden and then we might run cows through there in the wintertime. And back to that example that I was talking about, if the grass is this tall, the cows first, we're going to run goats through there and they're browsers. So they're going to eat it about halfway down, maybe a little bit less. Then we're going to move cattle through there and then we're going to pull them off. 3 days later, we'll then run the chickens through because that coincides with the fly larva cycle and in the cow manure. So the chickens, instead of using a fossil fuel drag harrow, will throw that fertilizer left from the cows out while eating the bugs. And so we've gotten goats, we could use them for milk, we could use them for meat. We've gotten cows that we could use for milk, we could use them for meat. We've gotten chickens, which depending on their sex and how old they are, we might have eggs from them or we might have meat. Uh, but we're getting multiple feedings out of this same lot. Then we're giving a long time for it to recover. And now all those things that were requiring fossil fuel to move the food around, we're not required to do that. One, and two, we're getting the most profit. Now, it's not about the acres that we farm, it's about the profit per acre, and stacking functions while regenerating the landscape just brings us in more and more cash. Now, there's the saying, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. That's everything can be measured in dollars, I guess, right? But it's hard to like cash flow because we're putting so much stuff back into the landscape to just grow our or grow our farming operation. I'm sure you can pull cash out, but and we're pulling out way more cash because than the fossil fuel farmer because they have to put money back into machinery, money back into maintenance. We just had to maintenance our tractors, and it was like $1,000, right? So that's a lot of corn. That's a lot. And land is super pricey too. So again, it's not about the profit, or it's not about the acres farmed. It's about the profit per acre. And that's what we come back to all the time. And that is kind of my specialty. I started learning about nature through going to survival schools and learning how to go off into the woods with next to nothing and positively affect your survival. Homesteading is habit, and it's really just connecting with nature. So learning with like the least amount of tools and then building my way up to where we are now. We just crossed over 250 acres under management, under like personal management that you can see when you come to the homestead, and a whole lot more from students that we've taught these practices to. Um, as far as like where we got these practices from, survival school, so hunting, trapping, fire creation, shelter, water, fire, food, tools, and technology. That's how we break down our survival essentials classes. And then into like homestead permaculture. And we take a lot from the permaculture designer's manual that was written by Bill Mollison, a lot of like edible forest gardens, kind of popularized by David Jackie. But still, we're wildcrafters. I find it really interesting that science is now just showing us that the Amazon rainforest might have been intentional planting over thousands of years that tribes used to build a food forest and affect their survival. That's the same thing we're doing here, just on a much smaller scale, and hopefully for not that much longer, because this is a worldwide thing and a worldwide movement that everyone could subscribe to. Like, who doesn't want the highest quality food at their doorstep for their family and friends? There's some studies that were saying that like native populations would work for like 2 hours a day and then they're just kind of hanging out with their friends. Who doesn't want that life? And when in a time when so many people are saddled by just jobs they hate, homesteading provides an answer for uh, people to be happy and create their own systems. Uh, we have a homestead mastermind where we talk about this kind of stuff every Wednesday. We delve into topics like stacking functions. We hear from farmers, ranchers, homesteaders, survivalists, preppers, project managers, how they're creating abundance for themselves, their families, and their communities. We're running out of time, so I want to leave a little bit for questions. I'm going to stop the recording because we're going to send this out to other people. But so your questions aren't going to be recorded, but we'll spend a little bit of time hanging out. Thanks for joining us on this free homestead webinar. It's my sincerest hope that we'll see you in the future on a homestead mastermind or in one of our in-person classes, whether you're like booking a private group or you are signing up for on the calendar of events that are already posted. Peace or preparation today means peace of mind tomorrow. And so the more that we can come together, build community, and build that abundance for ourselves, our families, and the people around us, that's what's going to bring the most to our life. And I really hope you got something from this. We're sharing stuff all the time. Sustainablehomestead.com. You already know that if you've made it this far into the webinar, but let's spend some time hanging out, ask you some questions, and I'll hopefully have a great answer for you. Thanks for watching.